when I thought I heard it all.
About 90 to 95% of the black church in America is objectively, by the standards of Scripture, heretical.
Man, stop lying.
It doesn't even constitute a true church.
Stop. You lying motherfucker, stop.
They're teaching things that are absolutely in direct opposition to the Christian faith. If you listen to the message and you believe what they're saying, you will go to hell.
Who told you that?
I love black people. I want them to know Christ. And currently, there are not enough black men in America, Christian men, who know enough theology to be able to be qualified to pastor black churches.
Bitch, please.
The black church in America needs to be split up. It needs to go and find a good, God-fearing white church with biblically qualified men so that they can hear the real gospel of Jesus Christ and come to saving faith in him.
Oh, really? Man, you don't get your goddamn non-cooking raisin and potato salad ass up on out of here with that nonsense.
Damn.
This guy's talking out the side of his goddamn neck. Talking about the black church is not a true church and that black pastors are not teaching black Christians the true word of God and that they're going to go to hell.
What?
Talking about the black church need to be broken up and that they need to go find some white pastors and white Christians so they can get the true word of God. Man, that doesn't make sense because when that was happening, what happened? The white Christians and the white pastors say that, hey, we can't congregate with people that don't look like us. And that's how the black churches came about. Just when I thought I heard it all.
About 9.
All right, so we covered that right there. So I'm gonna give the man on the street the first go at this. So in a minute or so, what do you think about that video? You agree, disagree, and why?
You know, I agree. Come on, man. That's why I did the video, because this guy was talking out the side of his goddamn neck.
Language.
All right, that's okay. So Colo, how about for yourself? You agree with the guy, with one of the guys in the video? Who do you agree with and why?
I need my composure for a second before I speak on.
You want to come back? I guess we'll come back to you or what?
That's some bullshit. Just like he said in the video, like that is some crazy stuff. And when he's talking about like this religion and this theology, like is he talking about the one that was stolen and changed? Is that why we don't know it? Because they stole it and changed it up so much we don't recognize it no more. I'm just saying.
All right, for the panelists, just to remind y'all, watch your language. Watch the language. You ready?
Okay, so yeah, T Reason, it's on you. You agree, disagree?
That's a wild take.
Wow.
The guy who the original video was focused on had a wild take. I disagree with everything he said. But I can understand why he may feel that way, but I know his take is wrong in so many different ways. But yeah, I disagree with it.
Why is it wrong?
Well, if you're preaching from the Bible, then that's what it's all about at the end of the day. And then I think we got to stop giving credit to people and the platform to people who make a statement without facts or information to back up their claim. He just made a whole bunch of bold statements, but he never said any reason to back up his claim. So I think that if you're going to make a claim, such a strong stance like that, you need to have something in there to back up that claim. He spent a lot of time saying that, black pastors are not qualified, but he didn't give any reason. I didn't hear one reason to back up his claim as to why, black pastors are any more or less qualified.
All right, Dane, it's on you.
My. Did anybody else notice that the guy talking about black pastors looks like a Temu Matt Walsh? Did they look like Temu Matt Walsh to you? They look like Temu Matt Walsh to me.
When I first
but no, I think that the Temu Matt Walsh has a legitimate point. However, now don't come at me yet. Okay, we talking about Protestant churches. Okay, however, it's no more than people in what someone would consider a white church or a white pastor. But that's because the American church in general has really abandoned the Great Commission to make disciples. See, now my degree actually, this does not make my arguments correct, so I'm not making an appeal to authority, but my degree is it's a bachelor's in religious studies. So I hold a theology degree, and I am, believe it or not, I am also ordained and licensed. I have sat under so many white pastors who have PhDs in things like church growth and development. It's a business degree. That's not a theology degree. And I've sat under pastors before that had no formal training, and they were building a business to make people feel shiny and happy and valuable. So are black pastors are straight? Possibly. White as well.
Yeah, I know you can click on this one. Wade, how about what's your thoughts on this?
I actually agree with T Reason, which I did not. Well, I wouldn't have expected.
Me
either. But no, he made a valid point. The guy didn't come with the receipts at all. He made these outlandish claims and then didn't bring any kind of receipts to say specifically what black pastors were lacking or what they were teaching that was counter to the Bible. He just made all these grandiose statements and then didn't follow through with any actionable ideas as to why his statements were true. You know, and so I don't know if his statements are true. I haven't been to that many black churches. I've been to a couple, but not many for obvious reasons. So, you know, I don't know what they're teaching in black churches. I haven't been to them. So I would need someone who does have that knowledge, who does have the experience to say, oh, black pastors are saying X, Y, Z. You know, if he came in and said, black pastors are teaching that Mary was a hoe, well, then that would be something that I'd be like, well, yeah, no, if they're saying that, then that's kind of a problem.
Appreciate you, Wade. All right, Aki, it's on you.
Well, guys, I have very little to say about this because the problem is on both sides, on every side, in every religion. They all do it. Churches in general, and unless it's like Episcopalian or a Catholic where they try to stick to some type of biblical normative, but if they're just preaching from the pulpit, I mean, people are saying all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and so Crystal, how about yourself?
I can't say if I agree or disagree, but what I can say is I'm wondering if he was using the examples of these I'm gonna call them fashion pastors, specifically the ones that Drewski was making fun of, that are doing all these shows and whatever, and they're not really preaching from the Bible and the biblical word, but also going with what Cola said, like which Bible, because they've changed it, and where's the original, and what the original teachings and all. So I'm wondering if that's what he had in his mind when he made this gregarious statement. We don't know what the pretense was, but I'm just wondering if that's what he was using as an example, because I don't know, but what it seems is they're not teaching from the Bible. They're not using biblical teachings, that they're using all these flashes and whatever other word you want to use, to engage their congregation. And then who was it? Marvin Sapp or whatever, that locked his congregation in to into the church until they donated whatever money or whatever. Maybe y'all know better than me, but I just slightly remember this.
I'm not. I mean, we're gonna go to John Martin now, but I do want to make sure that's clear on that part, just so you have understanding. So my understanding was Marvin was at he was at a conference, so it wasn't his church, and he just said close the door. He didn't say lock the door.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure, and so for our minds, we automatically go to lock and you close the door. I've been to some churches where you can't leave to go to the bathroom until the service is over. So I didn't see people
my
for that situation. But John Martin, you go ahead and what you got to say on the topic? You're on mute.
Don't look like he's talking. Is he frozen?
Yeah, I think.
Hey,
there we go.
mic check.
Yeah,
that's better. That's better.
Okay, so I'll share a couple of things. So in the history of Black people, it has never benefited our community to learn anything about anything from our white oppressive group. It's just never benefited us. The introduction of Christianity to Black people during the context of slavery was very detrimental because it reinforced the condition of slavery. Um, during during post segregation, the things that you see that have manifested itself in the Black community from being educated in public education under that supervision has not benefited our community. Some of the detrimental things that you see going on as a result of that identity crisis that's been created as a result of learning under those conditions. And so the idea that somehow the knowledge is more pure or better is, I'm just going to abjectly object to that. There's no evidence in history that our community has benefited from that. And so, so I think that it's a control message. It's a way to undermine and to devalue the opportunity for self-determination. And I think that we have to always be careful when anyone interjects their opinion about what we are doing to empower ourselves. Faith is one of those things that demands some connection and identity to the Creator. And I think that in the original promulgation of Christianity in the United States, especially as it relates to enslaved African people, put us at a detriment because all of the images and all of the relationship were owned by white people. And so when you're praying to God, when you're praying to Jesus and you're trying to change your condition, you're still praying to white people, which further subjugated Black people. And so having a legacy that grows from that, and that we've been able to learn other things now and kind of interpret the scripture in a way that's more reflective of us. When you talk about feet of brass, hair of wool, those are things that allow us to connect to the Creator directly and give us a much more valued experience around our faith practice, especially as it relates to Christianity. And so I just think that the idea that someone would come in and suggest that we would be better off worshiping in that space is just disingenuous, and it's just another weapon of an oppressive attitude, an oppressive
No
mindset.
weapon formed. I don't have a voice for it, but I appreciate that. So you got some comments to put in those?
Yeah, we got some comments. Shout out to Help the Bear said, "Oh, it's about to get hot in here. Vulcan, what have you done?" LOL, laughing out loud. Shout out to Help the Bear. We'll get back to the dialogue.
Okay, so really quickly, can you put the question up on the screen now,
Yes, sir.
We answered it more in the vague sense of just going up the video, but our question is a little bit more specific. So it's, if you had to guess, do Black churches struggle with doctrine more than white churches? So I just want to go on and get a yes or no. If you had to guess, obviously nobody knows. There's no crystal ball for none of this kind of stuff. Not that some of y'all would even believe in crystal balls anyway. But so we'll start from the bottom now, but with John Martin. So if you had to guess, would you say that Blacks struggle with biblical doctrine more than white churches?
Okay, relatively speaking. No, I just think the expression of our Christian values are very much different, because I think that there are other things that inform them socially. So,
Okay.
there's some tenets in the
I'm gonna give you a chance to expand. I just wanted to go around and get everybody's perspective, then I'm gonna come back to have you explain it. So, Crystal, how about for yourself? You say yes or no. Does the Black church struggle more with doctrine than the white church does, just generally speaking?
I don't think so.
Okay. Aki, how about for yourself?
No.
Wade?
Nope.
Dane? You're on mute, Dane.
See that? And I had it timed so well. My delivery was great. Y'all just didn't hear it. I said, silly question. Of course not. That's silly.
T-Reason?
It's hard to say, but I would say no.
Cola?
I would say no.
Man on the street?
No.
Now, real quickly, so I see you over there smiling right now. But I want to say this really quick. We know that it's very unlikely that it's the exact same. Is that fair to say? Everybody, we can all say it's unlikely that it's very the same. So would somebody say that the white church struggles more with doctrine than the Black church, if you had to kind of compare the two? Would anybody say that? Anybody will step up and say that part?
Yes.
Okay, so so Aki would say that the white church struggles more with doctrine than the black church, because we're not gonna. I mean, we're not gonna pretend that every single church is equal in every single area, right? We know that there are some that have better singers, some that are more doctrinally sound, some that have better coffee, some that have more comfortable pews. We can all agree with that stuff, right? We're still humans. We're still understand that there's natural sorting of, what we consider to be better and worse in certain categories. So, okay, so that being the case, nobody said yes.
Well, I'll say this. I'll say yes. I'll say yes. And here's what I'll say yes about is that the idea that the evangelical community supports Donald Trump is ridiculous. Period, point blank, all stop. Somebody who has his history with pedophilia, his misogyny, his violating the sanctity of marriage, who he has represented himself to be historically is a contradiction to a faith practice, because he has not repented for any of his transgressions or sins, and that is a predicate to being forgiven. You have to, and you have to. Part of the Christian doctrine is that you are to confess with your mouth, and he has done neither on any occasion about anything. He is unremorseful about it. He has a very reprobate mind when it comes to his transgressions and what that means for the people. So for anyone who has any familiarity at all with doctrine, to support him is a contradiction. And so I would say to you that I think that there is a struggle to adhere to doctrine in that way.
Before I bring this up to the panel, okay, does anybody want to disagree with that wants to speak to that really quick?
Well, I would, of course, I've always got something to say about everything.
Go ahead.
But I think that, caveat, okay, full disclosure, the first two elections, I didn't vote for him because of everything that John Martin down there is saying. Okay, so I'm not disagreeing that that's not a valid argument. But at the same time, there's two things we need to consider. Is that, Christians, whether they're evangelical or not, on the Democrat side, supported people like Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Bill Clinton, so on and so forth, that supported all sorts of things that were not in line with Scripture. So to me, that's just a moot point. That's all I'm saying. So that's one thing that we need to consider. There is that goes on across the board on both sides of the aisle and everything in between. Number two that we need to consider is, why is it that people like me spent 2 elections, 4 years saying the same thing that you, John, are saying right now, and then 4 years later voted for Trump? Why is that? It's because of the behavior, at least for me, the behavior of people on the left and how far the Democratic Party moved to the left and whatnot. That's why I've ended up voting for Trump. I had to hold my nose. I had to hold my urine. I had to hold my feces and hobble up there to check for Donald Trump, because I felt like it literally came to the question of which one do I want, the frying pan or the fire, the devil or the witch?
Yeah. So John Martin, did you want to respond to that, or?
Yeah, well, we know that most people who are liberal in their ideology are considered more secular as it relates to the faith community, and so they're more tolerant, and they have more bandwidth as it relates to the universality of some of the Christian doctrine, as it relates to not judging your fellow man, being inviting, so that there's an opportunity for Christ to take hold. Because in the faith community, you have the idea that Saul, who was a Christian killer, could become a prolific recruiter for Christ. And so part of the Christian doctrine is that you could be transformed, you become a new creature. And I think that some of the liberal and progressive mindsets around faith is to allow people to be welcome into the communion of Christianity, so that they may have that transformative experience. Whereas our counterparts, who are more punitive and more strict in their or orthodox in their practice of the faith, as they're anti-abortion and all these other different things. Because of that rigidity, they didn't have flexibility, and they should not accept the ideals of someone like the president as part of their affinity group, because they are so strict on the narrow is the gate, and they allowed a person who is disregarded all of the tenets of the doctrine to then represent and support him fully, with no evidence that he would adhere to the standards of the faith, which is to be charitable, which is to be generous, which is to be compassionate. With none of those tenets did he ever express any ability to conform to, and yet they still supported him. And I think that that's where adhering to doctrine comes under question, because you can do it when it comes to things about productive rights. You can do it when it becomes about things related to, I guess, any number of things. And yet,
transgenders.
in this case, right? Well, in whether or not people use the same bathrooms, or gay, lesbian, trans, LGBTQ issues, and those types of things, is very exclusionary. And if you're going to have that type of narrow perspective, he should have never been let into the fold. And that is the truth. And so they compromised on a foundational principle that I think questions their integrity. I think we can question their integrity as a result of that.
So real quickly, Dane, did you want to respond to that, or I know you can respond.
Oh yeah, I can always make up something, but I mean, I don't really have a response for him. I mean, I just,
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have any response? I'm gonna have a story to tell. Man on the street, you got anything? You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say this quick. Like, I'm on Easter time. I'm past my bedtime. I can get up and go to work at 5:30 in the morning. But all I'm gonna say is back to your original question about the doctrine. I think that the doctrine has changed because we are not preaching what we was taught back in the day. Now in this day and time, everybody want it fast, quick, and in a hurry. So everybody's not teaching the way that I grew up. I'm a 70s baby. So, you go to church from 12:30 to 5:30. You go to church Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday. Nowadays you go to church, you get the whole show. You get the shows in the black churches and you get it in the white churches. But my issues with this man is that, like you said, he didn't put no type of didn't have anything to prove what he was saying. He was just putting out a bunch of nonsense. And for me, that kind of pissed me off, because I know some religious people. I know a lot of them. We know a lot of them. And when you go to church to hear the word of God. When we die, we don't know where we're going to go. Hopefully you go to heaven, hope you go to hell, but you might be in hell right now. So I don't know. But who are you to tell me how I should worship, or who I should go listen to? That, to me, that is just asinine. But that's just my take.
So real quickly, I want to say this. One, as far as the guy, and feel free to disagree with this point, when the guy doesn't mention any kind of support for his claim, that was a snippet. I don't know if in the broader context of what he was saying, if you watch the whole thing, if he does that. I know he actually had a conversation, from what to share with me, this was like a panel. They had a panel discussion about something very similar to this. One thing I do want to say is, as a story, and I had a friend of mine, this is probably 2008, 2009, 2010 at the latest. And he was in a city that was a predominantly black city. And he shared with me that.
You're wild, man.
I wasn't saying who it was.
Yeah.
You would take it over or what?
Yeah, so
I didn't say it was him, y'all.
Interesting dialogue. It was a time. I didn't grow up in church. Shout out to the man on the street. Say he went to church Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I didn't have that experience. Just to give just a brief testimony for the audience and the panelists, I didn't know. I'm embarrassed to say this. I didn't know Jesus walked on water until I was like 19, 20. So that's how far removed I was from the church, right? So I get introduced to the gospel. So I'm reading scriptures, and when I got more involved into the text, I was getting my teachers from white pastors, right? So to John Martin, this is I agree to the video to a certain degree. Now, as far as being sanctified, I wouldn't agree as far as black people living a holy life. In the context of this
Okay,
country.
you're gonna share the part I was gonna share.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. As
Okay,
far as
sorry, go ahead.
all right, yeah, let me get to the part because I'm going with it. So,
yeah,
I'm reading scripture. So when I read, because certain pastors I was listening to that exposed me to the doctrines of faith, they had what you call the pillars of faith. So they was able to have a rubric to follow on how to really understand the gospel. So when I got introduced to that, and I would go back to the black churches, I was called the heathen, and demon doctrine and all this other stuff. So they was having a hard time to grasp what the gospel really was. So I to the video, I agree with that. I think
hold on, let me finish the story really quick. So what happened was I get a call. He's in, Augusta, Georgia, a really black city, and I'm in Texas, and I get a call one day, and he says, and this was him leaving the Christian faith at the time.
Yes.
He goes, after his experience of being educated through a lot of white teachings, white people teaching the Bible and stuff like that, then going into the black churches in Augusta, Georgia, when he would go in there, they were looking at the stuff that he was saying and the stuff he was communicating, which was just Orthodox doctrine, and historical teachings, like stuff that from Jonathan Edwards and Spurgeon and different things of that nature.
Charles Spurgeon, yeah.
The PC study Bible stuff that you can Google and research and learn. He's taking it over there and printing it out and going over it, and they're looking at him like, "What is this strange doctrine you're bringing to the church?" So he calls me one day, and this is him leaving the Christian faith and going deeper into black existentialism. He goes, "Hey man, I'm sorry, man, I can't do this no more. I just can't believe that only white folks have the truth." And then he leaves the church. And we don't talk again about anything church related really for years. He just left. That was kind of the end of it. But his experience was when he took more technically sound doctrine into the black churches, they ostracized him for it.
And I don't know if you remember my quote. I said, black people, we're not ahead anywhere in this country when it comes to white people. We can't even get God right now. I just can't believe it. This is one thing I want
to left the church.
If you don't mind me saying this though,
go ahead, John
if
Martin.
you grow up eating potato salad with raisins and apples in it, and you go to a black picnic and eat potato salad the way we eat it, you'll think that we got potato salad wrong.
The way we eat it. I want to know where people come up with this idea that white people put raisins in their potato salad.
Well,
I've never
there
seen
are
that.
people who put raisins and apples, and I've been to. I don't go to the cookouts, but I've
That's
been
a
to
myth. If you don't go to the cookhouse, then how you know it happened? Somebody told it to you, and you believe it. Somebody told you, and you believe that racist trope.
I've worked in diverse environments, and I've
I have to.
potlucks. I've gone to the potlucks. But my point is,
your point is full of crap.
Well, you could take that, but what I will say to you is,
when have you seen white people with raisins in their potato salad?
Well, the idea of it is, metaphorically, if that makes you feel more comfortable, Dane, is that if you grow up eating it one way and you're served it another way, a different way, you'll think something's wrong with the latter way. And so there is an opportunity for there to be some contradiction there. And it sounds like in those days, you were more receptive to your introduction to the faith as it related to your learning than you were, and the environment that you were trying to take it into were not embracing of that. And so there is a contradiction and a conflict there, and it's natural because what you were bringing in was foreign to that space. And who's to say which is the right and who was to say which is better, right?
So that's a really good point. I would like people to come into this if they want to, but what I'm hearing is we got two sides of it. One side is like, okay, it's not that one was better or worse as far as doctrine goes. It was just different. That's side A of the issue. And I think that's what John Martin elocuted very well. The other side of it is saying that no, there is a hierarchy of holding to teachings and doctrine more closely. There is that, and we all know that exists in everything in life. They're saying it exists there too, and I think he knows it was. Are you saying that it was just different for you? Or are you saying that you could tell one was being more technical about doctrine?
One was being more technical about doctrine.
Can I say something?
I want to. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I can say both. It's both.
I want to ask Enos about this situation. Was one of them a black church preacher from the pulpit and a white church preacher from the Bible? Because that confusion does happen when you have, but there are white churches that preach from the pulpit also, and there are also black Catholic churches and black Episcopalian churches too that teach in that same way that you say the white people were teaching you. So, did you go from a structured church to a pulpit like a Episcopalian? I mean, a Protestant church or something like that?
Yeah, they was all Protestant Baptist, both same denomination, if you want to. Non-denominational Baptist. I forgot. I'm having a brain fart right now, but there was
so real quickly. So Enos made his point about that, but I think the general consensus about from everybody is that there really is no real distinction there, and if it is, it's pretty marginal. So we can go. Anybody have any closing statements they want to make on this topic?
What? Of course I do.
Jesus Lord.
All right, Dan, you got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
I would just like to make the point that the thing that ends up causing these sorts of questions is that so many people speak with authority as if they know stuff, especially on race, but other subjects too, when they really don't have any objective reason to believe it. White people will say, black people do this, black people do that, black people do the third. Black people say, well, white people do this, white people do that, white people do the third. If you actually address them and ask them how much time they've spent in relationships, actual meaning relationships, your feet under their dining room table, their feet under your dining room table, you sitting out on the back porch eating ribs, that sort of stuff, your kids spending the night at their house, their kids spending the night at your house, real relationships like you do with your fellow black people, your fellow white people, you'll find out they don't have that. They don't have that. So what they're repeating when it comes to raisins and potato salads, or white people don't beat their kids and that sort of stuff, my mama beat the heck out of me and my brother. I whoop my kids. But that sort of stuff, our racial peers tell us that, and because we trust them, we accept it. But that's the only reason we had to believe it. But some folks will fight tooth and nail to defend that as, white people do this, white people do that. The only thing I know of, I can think of, but I think white people do that's not very common in the black community is recycling. But those people just like to feel like they're saving the planet when all they really doing is sorting out their trash. But other than that, I mean, that's it. So, I mean, it just gets very irritating when I hear people cling to that.
I do want to elaborate on.
Can I say one thing, please? Because Dane be saying some wild, outlandish stuff on here.
Sure.
One thing I can say is that black people definitely recycle. And as a black man from Georgia, by way of New York City, I lived in New York City and Atlanta, Georgia. I also lived in Raleigh, North Carolina. Now I live in San Antonio, Texas. I can tell you that black people are the most inviting people on the planet. You never see videos,
I won't argue against that.
You never see videos of white people welcoming their black friend in. Oh, look at, he really enjoys the Thanksgiving. Look at that. You don't never see that.
I won't argue against that.
I will say this. A lot of the videos you see circulating about these pranksters that are like, will ask for help and then give money. You do tend to see a higher percentage of the blacks doing that stuff. And then the lady who was calling different churches asking for help was with a fake baby noise. I think one thing she did mention was that the black churches were a lot more likely to help people out.
Look, black people are way more inviting and congratulatory to white people.
I got no argument against that. I got no argument against that. When I was being raised up, my mama always said, if your car break down the side of the road, the person gonna stop to help you probably gonna be a black man. So there's no doubt in that. But that does not address what I'm saying, which is that very few of us have actual meaningful, long-term, interpersonal, actual relationships with people on the other side of whatever that wall is. So since we don't, we need to stop talking about what people on the other side of the wall do and don't do based on what our family, friends, and other people that don't know nothing says. That's my point.
This happened because of white flight. White people left the cities and moved out to the suburbs doing blockbusting and redlining. And that's why 75% of white people don't even have a meaningful relationship and don't even know one black person. and that is a fact.
In other words, you're not responsible for anything in the
I
situation.
know
You
plenty
just
of white people myself. I'm not talking
you
about
know
me.
them. You know them. That's like people I know that say I ain't got nothing against them black people. I work with them. Some of my
No,
best
I have
friends is
very
black
personal
people.
friends that
You
are
know,
black and
I
white.
went to school with them. That don't mean nothing.
No.
I'm talking about actual engaging relationships with them
I
on the
have plenty.
same depth and level as your black friends.
I have
That's what
plenty
I'm
of
talking
them.
about.
I have them.
Oh,
Do
sure you
you?
do. Sure you
I
do.
do.
If you
I
did,
most definitely do.
All right,
So
let's
real
get this.
quickly, I think Enos, you had a point you wanted to make as well,
Yeah,
right?
I wanted to comment what John Martin was saying. Now, to elaborate more on my this road to understanding what I was experiencing, I noticed it's just two different cultures and how we deal with text, and the way we approach the Bible culturally. I'm just dealing with the culture is different from how I mean it's similar to how we are in the school system, how we are in the music we choose, just music we choose, just our culture is different how we interpret text or how we go about teaching. You know, so that was the difference that I wasn't able to
Before we go to the next
understand at the
topic, I
time.
want to give John you a chance to
Yeah,
address that. And we're going to go to the next topic.
and Dane, my bad about the raisins and the apples and the potato salad, brother. It was just
Hmm.
metaphoric for the
I know.
conversation. But I will say this: we're very dismissive of the impact and the legacy of slavery on Black people.
And the women in this room. I've been trying to speak
Right.
for 15 minutes.
Oh well, go ahead on.
No, y'all already on y'all
'Cause you-
soapboxes.
My bad. Go ahead.
Honestly, so I'm mixed, right? Black, I'm Mexican. My mother's mother passed when she was a child, so my grandmother is white. My grandmother is who introduced me to religion. I grew up going to church with her, Catholic. My Black grandma is Jehovah Witness. So I got two totally strict. When I went to one grandma's house, we learning this, and when I went to another grandma's house, we learning this. And then to get older and go to
I'm glad you didn't need a blood transfusion.
look. So I can say it really just depends on where you go. I've been to a lot of white churches, Hispanic churches, and Black churches. And I will say that if they are Bible based and they're teaching from the Bible, you're going to hear a lot of different things. However, there are certain times when they don't do that and they just have like their certain messages that they cycle. You don't really get a full message. You don't really
What culture are you talking about? The white, Hispanic, or white? Which one are you talking about? You talking about all of them?
I've seen it in both.
Okay, both. Okay.
In both, but I will say that I learned more once I started going to just like more Bible based like churches versus the ones that just teach theology broadly and they have like their own thing and they don't really go through the whole Bible or they don't teach the full lesson.
Okay, now John Martin, if you want to finish what you were saying, and after this, we'll go to the next topic unless Crystal or Wade has something they want to add or two reasons.
Just the only thing is that I think that
you're back on mute.
In these conversations, what often gets lost is access and lineage, right? And so when it comes to how these things are managed and how they're introduced and how the Bible is taught, there is a significant cultural impact. When you have a legacy of oppression, and I'm going to say it that way, where the word in the scripture, you're praying to a God that was introduced to you by your oppressor, and somehow it is you transcend this condition through that prayer to that God, right? And then you go through stuff like Jim Crow, you go through the stuff like the civil rights movement, and you continue to go through things where you have a different way of manifesting the things that you've earned, that you've learned, and that you know about doctrine. And it's all relevant in the sense that your connection to the doctrine and the way that you translate that is very different. You see, culturally, we are an expressive people. Culturally, you see things like you have freestyle in music, you have freestyle dance, you have all of those things where the interpretation of the information is defined, it is designed to address the condition that the people are going through. You cannot have a organized doctrine that is going to make sense in a slave environment. You don't have an organized doctrine that's going to make sense in lynching. And the people who are lynching you read the same doctrine. It's just not going to make sense. And that is the way that Christianity has evolved in our culture in America, is out of that. So there are going to be some disparities in the way that those doctrines are taught and the way that they're realized when they're transferred to other people. It's just the nature of the environment, and we can't ignore the legacy of that condition when we're talking about things like this, and the way that we interact and engage in it. We just can't ignore it.
So are you saying
that breakdown? Let's go ahead and pull up we got any comments? We don't have any comments. Go ahead and get the next question or video ready to go.
Let's just get right into the next video.
Okay.
Could I say something real quick, Vulcan? Yes,
sir. Go ahead.
Okay. John, man, John, I don't take none of this seriously. I'm here to defend worldviews, and I'm here to speak up for the truth. But no, man, I'm the kind of fella, me and you could go back and forth, yelling and hollering and screaming. We could talk about each other's mamas if we wanted to. And when that debate is over, the debate on the issue is over, I'll take you out to lunch, or I'll let you buy me lunch, man. So I don't worry nothing about that. But in the last few years, I've come across young Black people, that I'm friends with, like I'm a mentor at my company, and I end up developing actual like personal relationships with them. And I've come across them like this one young lady who was shocked, I tell you, shocked to find out that white people eat hog maws and tripe, pig's feet, and collard greens. She was floored that she believed that white people didn't eat that kind of stuff. So I think that within that social sort of stereotype, we end up people get communicated very, very inaccurate information, and then they form their worldview towards the other, whoever that is, based on that. So that's why I spoke up about the raisins.
Appreciate that.
Raisins in my potato salad, so you ain't offended me.
So hopefully this next one doesn't offend you, Dane. All right, let's go, Enos.